Hoa Hoa Hoa.
Welcome to the Less Than a Day podcast. Don't ask us to explain the name. We're not going to. I'm Kay.
I'm Kiko.
And we're here to talk about books, movies, TV shows, geeky things. Major spoiler warnings for every piece of media ever created, but if you've read the episode title, especially for Twilight. So let's kick things off with our first segment, which is current events. And this is where Kiko and I catch each other up on the stuff that we've been watching or reading over the last week. So, Kiko, what you been up to?
Honestly, I haven't been watching much. I did finish 1 or 2 K-dramas. One of them was a show called Love Next Door, and it's on Netflix. And it's...
Oh, I just heard about that.
Yeah, it's like a rom-com, and I thought it was really funny, and it was pretty mature. It was different from normal K-dramas with their misunderstandings and super typical tropes. But yeah, I thought it was really lighthearted and fun. Yeah, and that's it.
Did you start When the Moon Hatched at all?
No, I didn't. I'm a liar. You know what? I'm just staying true to my values.
Yeah, honestly, I can tell you from my experience in the last couple of weeks reading Twilight specifically, but also I had another book I had to read for a book club. When you are forced to read something, even as an adult, I feel like I flash back to like high school reading, assigned reading, and something in my brain just doesn't want to do it. And it's like, when you're forced to read it, I feel like it makes you want to hate it, no matter how good or bad it is. So I do want you to read When the Moon Hatched with a completely blank mind, because I think when you do read it, we're going to need to have a very, very long discussion, either on or off air. But
no, it will be on air since we've talked about it twice already.
Oh, yeah.
But, I will.
I have so much to say.
I swear, like, I will read it.
Because I also feel like probably some of the frustration you had with Fourth Wing was also that you were being forced to read it.
Yeah, no, Fourth Wing was I was being forced. I had zero intention to read it because
Yeah,
and
I'm sure that kind of definitely contributed to why it wasn't as enjoyable for you. So I don't want you to read it unless you're perfectly like neutral. You know what I mean?
For Moon Hatched, I am neutral since I am excited about the summary and stuff. But yeah, what was I talking about before? Oh, right, current events. And there's another K-drama that I watched. It's called Wonderful World, and it's a much darker, more serious K-drama. And the acting of the main character was phenomenal. The actress, compared to the sort of second lead, not romantic interest, but just the second lead, he did not match up to her level of acting.
Is she someone I know? Like, what else has she been in?
She's an older actress. Do you know the show Misty?
Maybe, I don't know.
It's a show about a reporter. Yeah. I don't think it's super big. Maybe it was. I wouldn't know. But the actress's name is Kim Namju, and the second lead was Cha Eun-woo, the idol. And honestly, his acting wasn't super great. It wasn't bad or anything. This was definitely a new role for him, like a darker role. Yeah. But that was pretty much the only complaint I had about it. I really liked the drama. I think it definitely left more to be desired. I feel like they could have gone in a different direction with certain things. But I don't want to spoil it. But
yeah, I mean, honestly, I've been looking for a good K-drama recently. Love Next Door is absolutely something I want to check out because people have been raving about it. So,
well, just to tell you about brief thing about Wonderful World is that it's about this woman, I think the psychologist whose son gets killed or gets into an accident and dies. And she kills the man who ran him over, and then goes on from there.
Hold on, that's so dark though.
It's so dark. It was so bleak. She was in the trenches. And everyone around her was letting her down. And it was just so sad. It wasn't like the best thing I've ever seen. But if you want to watch it, I'd say watch it.
I feel like that's my review for half the stuff I watch. So if you want to, go for it.
Yeah, and I think that is it. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't have a whole lot of current events. I am currently catching up on this manhwa that ended recently. As per usual, I'm keeping up with my trend of reading something for a little bit, dropping it, and then waiting till it finishes. So it has a couple different names. The sweeter name, in my opinion, is called How to Protect the Lovable You, but the official title is Saving My Sweetheart. And I have read season 1 of that maybe 5 or 6 times because it's so good, and it's finally over, so I'm catching up. It's so good.
I hadn't read it in such a long time because I was waiting for it to update, but I guess it's finally over now?
I think it's over. If it's not over, then it has at least like 130 something chapters, which is still enough for me to go ahead and catch up with. But oh my God, it's so, so good. It's tragic, but also kind of adorable. And every single side character is so developed, which you don't usually get. Like you still get your sort of tropey, overly aggressive guard, right? Or like sort of the side character of the female lead whose only job is to hype her up. You still have these characters that sort of fall into those familiar tropes. But at the same time, every single one of them has their own unique backstory and motivations. And it's a little bit cheesy, I think, with the way they all fawn over her. It's so cheesy, but I love it.
I do love that.
It's so good.
I think, yeah, I like this one too because it isn't in my dropped list. It's in my waiting list, and I'm on chapter 69. Yeah. Nice. But yeah, so like I guess I made it pretty far. I don't know. How many chapters is it?
I think it's got 132 right now.
Okay.
I think. Although I'm kind of curious if it is over, because this whole story takes place, or it's supposed to take place in the span of 6 months, because in 6 months there's like an incoming deadline. But the way the story's progressing, like it's going so slowly that, or not slowly, but towards that end goal of defeating her mother, they haven't gotten so far in 60 something chapters. Like she supposedly needs a bunch of wings to be on her side, and she has 2, maybe 3. Mm-hmm. And so
she was kind of working where I'm at, and it's 69. She's working on like the second one or something.
Yeah, like she's only just learning to work on her powers. So, and they haven't even gotten back to his kingdom yet. They're still traveling.
Oh, are you serious? 130?
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Wait, that's wild.
But so that means that the story has to, if it is over, the story has to pick up so much in the next 60 chapters for them to actually get to like the dramatic confrontation at the end. Because where it's at right now, like we're still in the beginning stages of building up to it, which I'm okay with. I'm just wondering where it's going to go from here. Mm-hmm. It's really good. Highly recommend. I do think that the romance is a little weird in that they already technically love each other because in the past life they were married and had fallen in love. But at the same time, it feels like on his end, it's a little bit love at first sight because she remembers him and being in love with him, but he doesn't remember her. And so he looks at her and instantly feels like he loves her already, which is, I feel like the story does a good enough job to warrant that because he knows a lot about her and like her past and her personality. He does catch glimpses of it. So I think that's valid. But at the same time, like I am always going to be somebody who wants a well-developed romance. I like the fluffy stage of when they're already together or they're clearly in love or whatever. And I like the angst too of mutual longing. I do love that. But at the same time, I'm always going to want like a solid foundation for a relationship more than getting to that fluffy stage, you know?
I feel like if they're immediately in a fluffy stage or like it's like an immediate attraction and love, I almost feel like the story is over. Like, because especially in these, what I'm reading is romance manhwas a lot of the times, unless it's like a family, even family ones, but especially for romance ones, I mean, the whole goal is them getting together or getting to a point where they love and like each other and trust each other. And if it's already like that in the sort of beginning stages, what's the point in reading the rest? I mean, I guess I could read about the relationship and their lives, but that's not really what I'm reading the manhwas for.
You know what it reminds me of? That's one of the criticisms that people have for The Nanny, which I love that show. That is also one of my comfort shows. But one of the criticisms that people have is like the later seasons get really annoying because the first couple of seasons are all about the sort of build up between the characters of are they going to get together or are they not going to get together? And then once they are dating and then eventually like married, it kind of feels like the sort of the suspense of it and like the conflict of it has already died out, and so the show becomes less entertaining to watch. I kind of feel like that way about a lot. Like, it can be done well. There are some shows where you're waiting for them to get together, and then when they do, it feels so warranted. It feels like a proper payoff. But when it's too fast, it's just like...
Yeah. I think the thing is, I would go into a thing wanting that type of... Oh, it's like a slice of life. Yeah, if I wanted a slice of life, I would go into it knowing it's a slice of life. But if I'm expecting a journey, and if I'm getting a slice of life, it's not, my expectations aren't matched.
Oh man, this brings up like a whole conversation I want to have at some point about how I feel like this is a major problem with romantasy today, and jumping into relationships too fast and jumping into spice too fast without doing any of the building and character development you need for that. But that is a conversation for later. We have so much more to talk about today. We'll get to that. But anyway, I think that's it for current events, unless you have anything else to add.
No, I've been waiting on a couple manhwas, and I should probably jump back in. But yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, so then I think it's time to talk about our main topic, which is the one, the only Twilight Saga by Stephanie Meyer. I can't believe you just did that.
Did you hear the gradual fade in?
Absolutely masterful.
I agree. It was masterful.
I think we've teased this a little bit throughout the past 10 or so episodes, just that we were going to get to this eventually. And I feel like, vampires and werewolves, it's perfect for Halloween. So happy Halloween. So at least I think you and I have the opposite relationship with Twilight, because I first read it when I literally read it on my 13th birthday. I stayed up all night reading the first book. I was so in love with it. I read all of the books. I loved it so much, I reread the series over and over and over again. My friends, I got all of them to read it. We had a Twilight watch party where we started in the morning and binge watched all the movies back to back to back.
That's so fun.
And we would skip over to our favorite scenes and stuff. I loved Twilight, dude. And I was a total...
You were in the mix.
I was, but you didn't have that experience.
No. When it came out, when it was a thing, I think especially when the movies were coming out, that's when I had actually first heard of it, when the movies were coming out, because one of my family friends was obsessed with it. She would wear the Twilight, movie shirts to parties and stuff. Her nails would be of the characters or something, and she would always talk about it. And so I was on the very edge of the phenomenon that was Twilight. So I think I was during that age. I think I was more into fantasy than paranormal. So Twilight wasn't even, I was into, historical fiction and fantasy. So that wasn't even in my views. But I read it, I think either in the beginning of high school or well into high school. So way after it came out.
The craze of it.
So yeah, I read it with a different sort of view. And then I watched the movies much later after I'd read the books.
Yeah, the movies are a whole different vibe. I listened to that song in Breaking Dawn, the Christina Perri 1,000 Years. I listened to that so much, the summer or something after it came out. And I spent that summer with Ani, that if I play that song today, he still starts screaming and getting pissed off. He fucking hates it so much.
If I ever get mad at him for something.
Absolutely. So shortly after that, when I started reading more and more, I had already started to develop the opinion that there was something inherently wrong with Twilight. And it was mostly that when I was doing a reread of it, I started to feel like Edward and Bella's relationship was really shallow. And once I started noticing that, it was like a domino effect. I started noticing so many little things. And so over the years, my fondness of it has faded a lot. And it has nothing to do with everybody hating Twilight. That was literally just a me decision, because I wasn't really on that side of the internet at that point of time. So I did want to go back and read all of the books as an adult and see if it was just nostalgia, or if I was overreacting like as a teenager and actually there's something really still good there, or if me and literally everyone else is correct and these books actually suck.
Yeah, but I do want to say that it's the content and not the writing that's bad. I like the writing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, well, hold on. Let's get into it. But before we do that, I want to do the briefest of summaries of these books for people who have heard of Twilight, have maybe seen a movie or two, or like don't want to go near Twilight with like a 10-foot pole. I get it. So here is a very, very brief summary. We are going to probably do a more in-depth recap on our YouTube channel. Shout out. We just launched that.
I know.
So we will probably do like a much more in-depth summary if you're so curious. Maybe with commentary, maybe without commentary. We'll see.
There will inevitably be commentary. But
inevitably, you'll hear our opinion. But for now, just the briefest of summaries of Twilight. Kiko, you want to take it off?
Yeah. So in the first book, 17-year-old Bella Swan moves to Forks, Washington from Phoenix. In school, she noticed 5 hyper-attractive and pale students, the Cullens. We have Alice, Jasper, Rosalie, Emmett, and the youngest, who is Edward. Over the next couple of weeks, Bella feels irresistibly attracted to Edward and learns that he is a vampire who can read everyone's minds but hers. Edward and the rest of the Cullens are dedicated to not drinking human blood, and they call themselves, quote-unquote, vegetarian, and they drink animal blood. But Edward tells Bella that her blood is particularly potent to him, and she's what's known as his blood singer. Is that the word?
Yes. I think they use that book in the second book. They have like some Italian phrase that means like her blood sings to him like a siren, basically.
Oh, okay. While introducing Bella to his family, they are approached by 3 unknown vampires, and one of them is James, and he decides to hunt Bella and wants to kill her. But obviously the Cullens defend her. And in the final confrontation, James bites Bella and almost turns her, but Edward sucks the poison rattlesnake style out of Bella and successfully controls himself from drinking all of her blood. And the other Cullens kill off James, and it pisses off his vampire spouse, Victoria. And that is end of book 1. Bella's in the hospital at the end of book 1, or she wakes up in the hospital.
Yeah, and they go to prom and stuff. In the next book, so that's New Moon, the book starts off with Edward breaking up with Bella after she gets a paper cut at her 18th birthday party and sends Jasper into a frenzy. He realizes that it's too dangerous for him to be with her and breaks it off. Bella goes into a full depression spiral for several months until she realizes that she can see hallucinations of Edward whenever she gets into danger. So she enlists Jacob Black to help her fix up some motorcycles in order to provoke more danger and see Edward. And they grow really close over that time.
Yeah, and Jacob doesn't know about these.
Well, so Jacob kind of knows in that he knows the old legends that vampires exist according to his tribe, but he doesn't believe that it's
Jacob
true.
doesn't know about like her wanting to go into danger, so he's not helping her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. She doesn't tell anybody about that. But yeah, Jacob learns that he is a werewolf and isn't allowed to tell Bella, but he clues her in to figuring out his secret. So she knows he's a werewolf. She joins his like werewolf friends and is like part of his group for a while. Bella goes cliff diving in order to see the Edward hallucination, and Alice, one of the Cullen siblings, has the power to see the future and sees Bella jump off the cliff and thinks that she's dead. Edward finds this out and then immediately, in a melodramatic display, goes off to Italy to see the Volturi, who are basically like the vampire government, in order to ask them to kill him. So Bella and Alice go to stop Edward. They get back together and they come back home, knowing that there's a time limit because the Volturi want Edward to turn Bella because she knows his secret. And that's New Moon.
Bella and Edward fight over whether or not she should be a vampire. And meanwhile, Victoria, James's spouse, is targeting Bella in revenge and creating an army of newborn vampires. The Cullens team up with the werewolves to fight off Victoria's army, and while hiding out and waiting for the attack, Bella admits that she's in love with Jacob, but not as much as Edward. They end up killing Victoria, and Edward agrees to turn Bella if she marries him and has more human experiences before she turns, or...
Well, yeah, that's his logic of not wanting to turn her. She can get Carlisle to turn her after graduation no matter what. She puts it up to a vote and they decide it's safer for Edward if she becomes a vampire. So Carlisle agrees to do it, but she wants Edward to do it. And Edward says, not unless you marry me first. And so he proposes to her, she accepts because she wants him to do it.
Yeah, and also like I think she kind of like has to, because when Bella's stopping Edward in Italy from becoming killed, they're kidnapped by the Volturi, and the Volturi were mad that Bella's a human who knows about vampires. So they say that they have to turn her.
Yeah, Edward comes up with a plan to basically stop that from happening if it's going to. It really kind of just comes down to Bella's desire to become a vampire. And then Carlisle agrees to do it under the condition, because he doesn't want to see Edward die. And he knows that if Bella dies, like of old age even, Edward is going to go kill himself. And so in order to keep Edward alive, he's like, I will turn Bella regardless of what you say. Yeah. So in the last book, Breaking Dawn, Edward and Bella get married. During the honeymoon, Bella finds out she's pregnant and she wants to keep the baby. She delivers a half vampire baby girl named Renesmee, best name of all time, clearly. Edward turns Bella into a vampire in order to save her life because she's dying after giving birth. Jacob imprints on the baby. The Volturi find out about Renesmee and think that the Cullens have illegally turned a human baby into a vampire, which is a big no-no. The Cullens gather a bunch of their friends to act as witnesses and vouch for them that Renesmee is not a child who's been turned into a vampire, but actually a half-vampire, half-human hybrid. They confront the Volturi, and the Volturi decide to back off, mainly because they're intimidated by the new vampire Bella, who has some pretty strong powers of shielding. And they all just live happily ever after, and Bella declares that nobody loves anyone as much as she loves Edward. Which, okay.
Yeah. They all live happily ever after under the looming threat of the Volturi, though.
Yeah, they will have to probably.
Eventually they'll come for Renesmee, because Renesmee has got some powers too. Do they know that?
Actually, her powers are lame as shit, actually. Can we talk about that? Like, Renesmee has she has the inverse of Bella and Edward's powers. So Edward's power is that he can read everybody's mind. And so Renesmee's power is that she can convey her thoughts to other people by like touching them. She can make them see what her experiences. And meanwhile, like, she also has the inverse of Bella's power, because Bella's power is that she keeps everybody out of her mind. And Renesmee's power is that nobody can keep her out. And I just think that it's a really lame power. I'm not going to lie. It's really dumb.
I know, but like it's a sort of interesting power nonetheless. And I'm sure the Volturi would want that in their ranks.
Yeah, I think they're more interested in Alice.
Yeah, they're definitely more interested in that, yeah.
Yeah, so overall thoughts for me, real quick, is just that this series was a real struggle for me. Like, usually I would read a book in a day, maybe even 2 books in a day if I feel like it. But the reading this series took me weeks, and I was going to read Midnight Sun, which is the sort of 5th book in the saga, which is from Edward's point of view, and I couldn't take it. I had to stop halfway. I couldn't do it.
I have to admit to you, I also stopped. I told you I would read it, but I could not. But I went online and searched up a bunch about Midnight Sun, and I'd already read Midnight Sun. Like, I read it a bit after it came out too. I think it was around the times I was watching the movies, so I was like, why not? I'll read this.
Yeah, it was rough. Edward. So before we go into sort of the point-by-point analysis of Twilight, I do want to address something really quickly, which is that I feel like, despite the fact that overall I can conclusively say, while there were some good points to the series, and I have to begrudgingly admit that Stephenie Meyer does surprisingly cool things, I also think that overall it's bad. Just the content of it is bad. But I do feel like there is some validity to the argument that people are making that the overwhelming hatred that Twilight gets is somewhat rooted in just pure misogyny, because it's written for teenage girls. It's written about a teenage girl, primarily from her POV. And there's just an intense hatred of anything that's marketed towards women from people who've never read it. If you've read Twilight and you dislike it, fine. But a lot of the people who are all over it just tangentially see stuff related to it. And it's like, oh, stupid girls, they like sparkly vampires, blah, blah, blah. I think there is some validity to that argument. Because how many poorly written shonen anime have I also watched in that time period that don't get nearly the amount of vitriol that Twilight gets?
Mm-hmm. I think like a big reason for that is how big Twilight became. So it's exposed.
Yeah, but there are definitely some poor writing choices. So speaking of back to Midnight Sun, yeah, the big problem for me is that when I was reading Twilight, especially the very first book, Bella is so melodramatic, right? Everything is the end of the world for her, every minor inconvenience. And it was exhausting to read, and that's what made a lot of the books very exhausting for me to read, is her POV is so just me, drama. Midnight Sun was 10 times worse. I didn't think you could find somebody more broody or whiny or dramatic than Bella, but Edward somehow manages to do it.
He's just, you know what? I think he rose beyond my expectations. He was a sharp person that he was much creepier. No, he was just as creepy. He met those expectations and did even more. In Midnight Sun, that stalkerishness or those stalker
I don't
obsessions.
know if Stephanie Meyer was trying to justify a lot of his behavior by going through his thought process in Midnight Sun, but somehow it made it worse. Like his reasoning for wanting to see Bella sleep at night, like it was worse.
Oh yeah, him smelling her. Nasty. Anyways, but yeah, and like in Edward's point of view, he can hear everyone's thoughts, right? So you're technically getting multi-POV out of Edward. But I don't know, Stephanie Myers wrote like a lot of like the girls' thoughts as like she made them seem super vapid and like they were just boys, jealousy. They were envious of Bella, and all the boys were just hooked on Bella. They were like, Bella's the greatest human, like a girl we've ever seen. Like I want her. Like it's why?
I know. Okay. Yeah, Bella is honestly, I think I can say, my least favorite protagonist of any book I've ever read, and that's crazy. Like, she's worse than What's-Her-Face from Fate of Wrath and Flame. That's how much you know I hate her ass.
No, for real.
Like, she both has no self-esteem, and she has this superiority complex where all the normal people are dumber than her, but all the supernatural creatures are better than her.
I hate saying it, but she has that not like other girls.
I mean, that is the thing, right?
She has
not
that
like
not
other
like
girls.
other girls.
She's the OG.
But the thing is, she wasn't special. Okay, I like in the beginning, like the first few pages of Midnight Sun, in Edward's point of view, he was like, I'd seen the new face that'd come into school, and she was like every other girl. She was ordinary, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So you're telling me, honestly, we knew this, but like if Bella hadn't had that shield, Edward would have had no interest in her.
Not only that, I also got the vibe, and I might be reading into this too much, but reading Midnight Sun, a lot of Edward's attraction to her didn't happen until Alice told him that you are going to end up with her. So I wonder how much of that was Alice's manipulation of being like, no, this is gonna happen. And so Edward just believes it and so thinks that he loves her. Because as you're reading his thoughts, yeah, he thinks that she's super average. And all of the things that he says he finds interesting about her are crazy to me. He's like, she doesn't respond to me the way that I expect her to. But when you read her responses, it's kind of just like, and? Like, she doesn't say anything revolutionary.
No, like, if Edward were able to read Bella's thoughts in Twilight, all Bella could think about was Edward. She was just obsessing over Edward in the weirdest of situations. And how was she, if Edward had given attention to any of the other people in school, they would have responded the same way Bella would have. Bella wasn't anything special. It's just that Edward actually finally took time to talk to another to a human, like to a person. If he'd talked to any other human, he would have gotten,
that goes back to the original point that I had of why I started to dislike Twilight even before I just reread it. I really got the feeling, as I had gone back and read it and read it and read it over again, that Edward and Bella's relationship is so shallow. And I thought maybe I would have a different opinion going back and reading it now, and then also using Midnight Sun to sort of supplement that. But my opinion is exactly the same. Bella makes this argument to Jacob in Eclipse, where he's like, what is it about Edward? Is it because he's good looking, and is it because he's rich, right? And she goes on this whole rant of like, how could you think of me that way? I'm not that shallow. You know, it's because he's a good person, right? But I think that argument has no merit to it, simply because when she's talking about him being a good person, what she means is that he's trying not to suck her blood and not trying to hurt humans, which she doesn't find out about him until after she discovers he's a vampire. But if you go back and look at Twilight, she is already obsessed with him at that point. And the only reason is because of how attractive he is, because he's terrible to her.
Literally, I think like after maybe the second or third time they talk, Bella says, I'm in love with him. And I'm like, do you even know what love is?
There's no chance.
I think the only person she really loves in her life is maybe Renesmee. She doesn't seem to hold that much love for Charlie. Maybe, I mean, I guess she does love him, but like from the way I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, how does she know what love is? And she'd never been in a relationship before, as it's mentioned many times, because she's not like other girls. But
yeah, I think part of that also is that there's nothing to Edward. He's nice, I guess, except none of his behavior towards her is nice.
Literally all the time they spend together is spent... This was an extreme annoyance for me. He just kept interrogating her. He was like... He just kept asking her so many questions about herself. And then like every time Bella was like, is it my turn now? And he's like, no. And I'm like, what the
Four.
are you talking about? Are you serious?
It feels like any time that they're talking, half the time Bella is spending trying not to make him mad. It happens a lot in the first book, but it happens a lot more going on in the series, where she will alter her behavior so that she doesn't see him get angry and have an outburst at her. And he always gets his way. Whatever conflict they're having, he always gets his way. Even the one thing that she wanted that he didn't want, which was she wanted to be turned into a vampire, and he did not want to do that. Even then, he got something out of it where he's like, you have to marry me first, and didn't turn her until it was either be a vampire or die, right? She never wins any argument. He's so controlling. She wants to see Jacob in Eclipse, and so tries to find ways to go sneak out to see him, because Edward, in order to prevent her from going to the reservation, breaks her car.
Yeah, because he can't track her, because number one, all the werewolf scent like muddies their senses or something. Also, when they're on reservation land, when Bella's on reservation land, Alice can't see her or like have visions of her.
And they're also not allowed to go on reservation land. The Cullens are forbidden. So yeah, like that's just one example. There's so many of Bella will want something and Edward will just fully disregard her. Or like Bella will say, I don't like parties. I don't like being the center of attention. I don't want to go to prom. And what does Edward do? He tricks her into going to prom. Like,
and Bella's like unhappy about that, like super insecure. And like it kind of makes her look like a shitty person, right? Because she told like her friends and stuff that she wasn't going or something, right?
Yeah, she did. And honestly, I will say that like reading Twilight made me finally be able to put together in my brain why I haven't been enjoying a lot of romance recently. And it's something that Twilight does, is just they want the characters to be in love already. And so they skip over everything that would explain why they would be in love. They skip over the chemistry. They skip over the bonding. They skip over a semi-friendship even. They skip over the forming respect for one another.
Yeah.
They skip over inciting incidents. Everything is skipped just so the characters can be in love. Bella meets him twice and they're in love.
They're supposed to be on like equal footing. It's a relationship's supposed to be like an equal exchange. There was nothing equal about their relationship. Bella was always on like the
Lower footing.
a lower footing. And she thought of herself in that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My main takeaway from rereading Twilight, and part of the reason it was so unenjoyable for me, is that Twilight is not a romance. It's a tragedy. This poor girl needs so much therapy, and every single adult in her life has failed her. Like, Renee was an awful mother, just the worst mother. And Carlisle probably should have moved the second he realized what was going on and realized that Edward almost lost control and killed her day one. They should have moved, regardless of if Rose wanted to stay or not. Billy maybe is the only person who at least tried to stop things from happening.
No, I liked Billy. When I was reading the books initially, I was a little on the edge. I was like, okay, why is this adult man intervening in a kid's relationship? But it's like more than that. Like, he's trying to save her life, right? Literally. And like Charlie, like, man, he has his like moments where he's sweet and stuff, but like as an actual like guardian of Bella, he doesn't do that great of a job.
I think his problem, he does the best he can do, but it wasn't enough.
But also, he doesn't have that much experience parenting. Because if we read in the very beginning, like chapter 1, some of the first lines of the book, Charlie only gets to spend 1 month a year with Bella. Renee, Bella's mother, took Bella out of that house when Bella was like a couple months old. And then from then on, for 14 years, Charlie only got to spend 1 month a year with Bella. And then for like the last 3 years, he only got to spend 2 weeks with her throughout those 3 years.
Which is crazy because I think he's actually the more capable parent.
Yeah, but Charlie is still in love with Renee, and so he obviously yielded to her.
Yeah, he also failed her. Like, he really did try his best. Charlie has his moments, but he also failed her.
Charlie got bad luck with Bella and Renee. Yeah, and I wonder if Charlie had raised Bella, how do things turned out?
It should maybe have been more well-adjusted. Like, she needs so much therapy. I don't think I've read a character that needs more therapy than Bella. Like, going catatonic for 3 months because your high school boyfriend leaves you is crazy. I think it's supposed to be played off as romantic in that they can't live without each other. But I'm sorry, she's 17. No, this is a problem. Charlie should have got her to therapy way sooner.
She goes on off like the worst end. She contemplates the worst things. She dissociates. It's wild.
They say that like, oh, this isn't normal behavior, but it's supposed to be in a way of because nobody is so in love. And so to a normal person, this is crazy. It's like, no, this isn't normal behavior, not because she's so in love with him, but because that this is a trauma response to something that should not elicit so much of a trauma response.
Yeah, and also, like, just to clarify, I'm not blaming any of this on Bella. None of this is Bella's fault, or like her depression, or like obviously not. But a big part of Edward literally told her that your attraction to me, a big part of it is because you're dazzled by me, because the vampire allure. He tells her that, and so he knows. And so I don't know what he expected when he said, "I'm gonna move away and just
he's selfish."
Yeah, he is selfish. And so a part of that is because that's also a big part of Bella's depression. Like, that breaking off of that allure, like that. It's just,
They say so often that Bella is mature for her age as a way to sort of justify the age gap as well. But as you read the books, she's absolutely like every other angsty 17-year-old.
Yeah, right? No, Bella is book smart.
She's not mature at all.
Yeah, Bella's book smart. She's not street smart. Like, she doesn't have emotional maturity. She has, like, if she were to live on her own somewhere else, she would be okay. But like,
unable to.
No, she would be okay. Like, if we're not talking, vampires weren't in the question here. Like, if they weren't in the situation, I think Bella would be able to do just fine. Because I think she's taken care of bills. She can cook. She can.
But the thing is that her main thing of, oh, she's so mature is that she can cook. She's not paying those bills. That's Renee, right? She's just remembering to get them filed on time. Like being able to cook and do laundry and domestic chores does not make you mature beyond your years. That makes you a responsible teenager.
She grew up faster. I'm saying that like she's capable of learning that. No, I'm just saying like she was capable of doing more if the Cullens hadn't been in the situation. Like she could have been so much more.
She needed so much self-growth. Like maybe she was able to take care of the minutia of day-to-day life of being an adult, but emotionally she was not prepared for that at all. She was not thinking about her future in a responsible way whatsoever. I really do think that she maybe would have been helpless.
I think like before she was looking into like colleges and stuff, like when she wanted to do something, right? I don't remember like if she wanted to major in anything specific, but like it makes me sad that like Bella never gets to. And she enjoyed school. Like, she was studious. And then now she'll never be able to live in... She had, like, seasonal depression, right?
Yeah.
So, and she has to live in... She hates small towns, too. She has to... That's exactly what now... How she has to live as a vampire now. Like, it's that's what sad.
I'm saying. I think that this series is a tragedy, and that's a big part of it. Is that again, her attraction to Edward is so shallow. Whenever you hear about, like, whenever she looks at him, it's several pages of how beautiful he is and what, like, he's an angel. When she thinks about him, that's what she's thinking about: is how attractive he is, his face. She's always talking about his face and like his voice. So it's just teenage infatuation, but she's put in a position where that infatuation is going to ruin her life pretty much. Like she's done growing forever.
Yeah.
She's becoming a vampire. She doesn't have the opportunity to do anything that a normal teenager could do. Like she doesn't have the opportunity to become an adult, grow into her own, build a life for herself. And Bella acts like, I have nothing to live for other than you, and so I'm fine being frozen forever at 18. And that in and of itself is so sad to me, that she doesn't value her own life. It's not romantic. It's just sad, and everybody has failed her. And I don't know, like all of it just felt very icky to me.
It's so wild how her life suddenly gets better after she becomes a vampire. Like nothing is acknowledged.
I think that a lot of that is the sort of justification of it, of like, oh no, this was always meant to happen. Bella was always meant to be a vampire. That's why she doesn't have to do any of the newborn stuff. That's why, like, you know, everything works out so easily in everything. For her. Is because, she was always meant to be a vampire, but I don't know if that's true. I think that's just trying to justify what has happened after it's already happened.
And also, Bella doesn't have a single fucking friend. And
yeah, that's depressing.
Like Jessica, Angela, Mike, Eric, Tyler, like she hates those people. Maybe except for Angela, but she hates those people. She was so bench to them in the beginning.
Dude, she is so rude to anybody who's not a vampire. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Like Bella is not a good person either. She's a martyr, but not in a way that's noble, in a way that's deeply tragic, in that she doesn't value her own life.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks that everybody's more important than her, and so it's okay for her to die and her to sacrifice. That's not a noble sacrifice.
Dude,
I think in order to be a martyr is like, you have to want to live. You have to want to survive and give that up for something that's
for like a cause
greater than for a cause, something greater than yourself. Sacrificing your life for love can be romantic / tragic if you had a strong desire to live beforehand. Otherwise, it's just sad.
If Edward wasn't a vampire,
they never would have got together. No.
Yeah.
Can we talk also about the age gap thing? Because I feel like there's the justification that I'm hearing about the age gap is, and the justification they try to give in the books is, whatever age you get frozen as a vampire is how you remain forever. So Edward is mentally 17 forever, and so that's why it's okay that they're together even though he's a century old.
That's not right.
I don't think that argument holds water, simply because look at the other characters, right? Carlisle is supposedly 23. Does he behave like a 23-year-old?
No, and also Edward has 2 medical degrees.
Yeah. Like, and also he says to her, like, at one point, he's like, they're arguing about something. He's like, when you have spent like a couple decades as a vampire, you'll have new perspectives. So he's admitting that they can change a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
and no, there's like, that's not how like mentally how, are you kidding? Like,
that's not how that works.
Yeah.
Experience is half of what causes you to grow.
Yeah.
So,
and also like, how could there be no like mental, emotional growth throughout? I mean,
it's tragic in one of two ways. Either Bella is frozen forever as an 18-year-old and doesn't have the chance to have that emotional growth, or you can have emotional growth as a vampire after you're frozen, in which case it is incredibly creepy that Edward is crushing on a child. Either way, it's sad.
Yeah, and also, it's weird to think that Edward, that he's like 104, right? Or 100
He's 108.
Something like that. And thinking that he could read the minds of everyone of all ages is so uncomfy. So uncomfy.
Dude, you know what's really, really uncomfy, and what I think pretty much kills the argument that, oh, he's 17 because he was frozen at 17, is that when he's talking to Bella in Twilight about that initial urge he had to kill her in biology class, he said something along the lines of, I would have jumped you in that room full of children. That means he thinks that they're all children, which means Bella is a child.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, speaking of age gaps, shall we move on from Edward and Bella to talk about Jacob?
Buddy.
Let's talk about that imprinting in Breaking Dawn. So a little context, werewolves have this thing where essentially they call it imprinting. It's basically having a soulmate, where they see their soulmate and all of a sudden like their soulmate becomes the most important thing in the world to them. And as soon as baby Renesmee is born, Jacob imprints on her, and I just...
I think enough has been said about it that like I don't think we really need to.
They tried to justify in Breaking Dawn, because another character also imprints on a 2-year-old.
Yes.
And they tried to justify, oh, it's not like that. When they're a child, you just want them to be happy. So you take care of them as a child, and then they grow up, and then eventually, when they're all grown,
that's called
you get together.
I'm sorry, but that's called grooming. That is, let's repeat it again. Grooming. That is illegal. That is gulag.
And someone was like, I think maybe it was Bella, was like, okay, what if she decides that she doesn't want to be with him? What then? And Jacob's just like, well, if somebody is adoring you 24/7, what would make you not want to be with them? And I'm like, buddy, that just, sounds like the swear word I wish we had video on this podcast. Just your face. It's really, really, really gross. And you know what's really depressing about this is that there's a story where Jacob and Leah could have ended up together, and I think that would have been a better romance than even Edward and Bella. I think would be Jacob and Leah, and we were robbed, and we should feel upset about it.
I thought it would be Jacob and Leah, and I was shook. I was shook when it came up that Jacob had imprinted on Renesmee. I'm like, the record scratch was
we were absolutely
big record
robbed.
Scratch.
Yeah, it's really, really gross. And you know what? I want to say, since we've been so negative up until this point, I want to give Stephenie Meyer credit for, I was simply shocked with the amount of world building that actually went into this series and the amount of lore. Because everyone wants to joke about, the vampires sparkle in the sun. And some of the lore is absolutely problematic, like the imprinting. But there's still so much like backstory and like world building that has actually gone into this series, which was surprising to me.
I have to say, like, it was so easy to visualize what she wrote. I liked the writing a lot.
She has this habit of really over describing what her characters are doing, I think. Like, I don't need to hear about exactly what Bella is cooking every single night for Charlie.
No, I
don't need
actually
to
like
hear
that.
all the
No,
details
I
of
liked
her
it.
making a bowl of cereal.
No, I did like the chicken enchilada details. That's something we'll have to disagree on, but I did enjoy the cook. I love cooking, so that was great
Fold
for
in
me.
the cheese.
10 out of 10. Anyways.
Yeah, but it's that with everything, like reading about her folding laundry, or like reading about her like going into the backyard to read like it just is over description for me. But I don't think I don't think Stephenie Meyer is a bad writer, and I think good evidence of that is the fact that The Host
exists.
is one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
The fact that The Host exists, like Stephenie Meyer has a talent for world building, and I think we all just need to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think Stephenie Meyer has talent for world building, and I think we all need a sequel to The Host. I think we all need, it needs to be, okay, we're not expecting much. It can be a duology. It can end on the second book. We just need the
forking
conclusion. But this is not about The Host. This is not about The Host. But if you
It should be. The Host is so much better.
Yeah, but that book is a chonker, man. But yeah.
I loved it though.
It was so good.
And a lot of that book is so like lore driven as opposed to plot driven, because not a whole lot actually happens in The Host. Like a lot happens, but
yeah.
If you just take the action scenes alone, it could be condensed so easily. A lot of it is just like the details of how this hidden group of humans would be surviving in a world where it's been taken over by, like, The Host is so good. Even again, Twilight, like the lore about the werewolves. I don't want to talk about the cultural appropriation and the racist stereotypes because I don't feel like I'm personally qualified to talk about it. I will say that I acknowledge that they exist and that she probably should not have done that, and I don't approve of that.
But we're not in a place to get offended for the people that it actually appropriates.
But at the same time, I do think that like the lore building of what the shapeshifters are, the lore building of vampires, of like even though the science of it made me cringe as a STEM girly of like the chromosomes and stuff, at least she thought about that, you know? Like the Volturi backstory, oh my god, the Carlisle's whole story.
No, okay,
like,
brief pause. Carlisle is one of the in my opinion, I think one of the most interesting characters in the book, and I don't think we got enough of his backstory. I think he's an incredible character too. He's a vampire and he works in a hospital and doesn't even blink at the sight of blood. That's incredible. But
honestly, instead of getting Midnight Sun, we should have gotten a prequel Carlisle book.
And not about Carl.
I would so read that.
And not about Carlisle and Esme. Just about Carlisle's backstory.
Yeah, seriously.
And also, I totally forgot about this, but Edward was the first vampire that Carlisle turned.
Yeah.
Does this make Edward older than Esme? How old is Esme?
Yeah, no, and he brings it up in Midnight Sun too. Esme, I think, was turned shortly after Edward. She was turned at a later stage in life, but Edward was made into a vampire first, and he sort of defers to her as his mother anyway. And you know what? Okay, let's talk a little bit about sort of the feminism aspect of Twilight, because a lot of people also say that Twilight is a feminist book. But like every character gets a backstory, a really cool backstory. Like Alice has an awesome backstory. Jasper gets a slightly problematic, like Confederate backstory.
The infamous.
Even Emmett and Rosalie have their backstories, but Esme's backstory is so shallow, and all of the female characters, except for maybe Alice and Leah, feel very shallow to me. Leah, I think, is the most developed female character in the whole book. And even her backstory is about a man. It just, I don't think the whole feminism thing holds water. I will say that the imbalances you see between Edward and Bella don't come from her being a woman as opposed to him being a man. Or let's be real, her being a girl.
It just comes from her age and her being a human.
Yeah, it's all of the power imbalances you see come from supernatural versus mortal as opposed to man versus woman. but there is a clear favoritism for the male characters as opposed to the female characters. They can see. Actually, the most misogynistic character in the whole series is Bella. There's a part in Twilight where Charlie takes an interest in Bella's life and is like trying to talk to her about her friends and like the dance. And and she's like, dads aren't supposed to care about that stuff. I'm like,
oh, poor Charlie.
Okay,
oof,
Bella.
Charlie. Oof, buddy.
Oof, Charlie.
Oh, Charlie. I feel like you could have been a better father to another child. Or if Bella had grown up with you.
Charlie deserved better. Be so for real.
Charlie didn't belong in Twilight. I'm sorry.
No.
Charlie did not belong into the world of Twilight.
Have you ever seen that post about the real Twilight story we deserved is Charlie and Billy teaming up to hunt vampires?
That is so
Charlie
cute.
Swan Vampire Slayer is such a book I want to read.
There's a video up on YouTube. Maybe I should send it to you then of Twilight from Charlie's perspective. Like a recap of Twilight from Charlie's perspective. It's so funny.
Yeah. So sort of final thoughts. Wait, I want to talk about Jacob a little bit because I think that's the only thing we haven't really touched on, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Pre-werewolf Jacob is my favorite character in the whole series.
Yeah, he's very sweet, naive, a bit clingy. Yeah.
He's just a sweetie.
Yeah. He's young. He
loves
his
his friends. Yeah, I don't know. I think since I read Twilight, I have a lot more little brothers now, and Jacob was just such an endearing character to me pre-werewolf.
Yeah.
You know?
But did he force that kiss on Bella in the books?
Yeah, he did. No, that was assault. Yeah.
And
that's what I'm saying. Pre-werewolf.
And
pre-werewolf Jacob would never.
Yeah, and like even werewolf.
And he was manipulative to her too.
Yeah, I don't.
You know what though? The scene where Bella tells him that she's in love with him, but loves Edward more, I think didn't make sense. And they try to make that go away by having Jacob imprint on Renesmee, like, oh, they were getting it mixed up. That like actually he was in love with Renesmee before she was even born, and he and Bella got that wire like crossed.
Yeah, no, for me, I never understood the Bella as a character. I'm not talking about the audience. I'm talking about Bella as a character. For me, for her, the only option was ever Edward. Like she was willing to do much more for him. Like she was. Yeah.
There is no love triangle. That's my argument. Yeah. That it was never going to be anyone but Edward. Yeah. Ever. And her saying that she was in love with Jacob never made sense to me ever.
Yeah. Like, I thought it would be like, oh, I love you as a friend, but like she said she was in. I don't even know. I think she was just in love with him as a friend. Like when? She just loved him as a friend. Like he was a place of comfort when she was at her lowest. Like that. But no, it doesn't make sense for.
Team Jacob doesn't exist because it was only ever going to be Edward. But that being said, Jacob is better for her.
Yeah, the Team Jacob and Edward thing was for the audience, who they would pick. Yeah. It wasn't for Bella.
I think a little bit of it at the time was which one she was going to end up with, at least before people who hadn't read the books waiting for Breaking Dawn to come out.
No, I thought it was fairly obvious. Like it wasn't never going to be anyone.
It was obvious
Edward.
to me, but I think at the time they were trying to hype up which one is she going to choose.
Okay, yeah.
At least for the like movies wise, dude. Even in the movies, Bella and Jacob have so much more chemistry than Bella and Edward.
Yeah, no,
which is wild because weren't Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson dating too? So
yeah, zero chemistry. Interesting.
Zero chemistry.
Like I was rewatching some of Twilight, right? And it's so funny. I cringed out of my body. Like Bella's mouth was always like open and she was always like, and then the lip bites, and then the
shoulders, yeah.
And then like Edward always, I don't know, like Edward always like looked on the verge of like throwing up. He was always like Yeah, like I don't
Well,
think the
I mean, I guess
it's
that's
incredible.
fair, right? Because he's trying not to.
I know, but he looked like that for every scene. Like even when his hunger was satiated, he still looked like that. And he would like, the stops, like in the books it's written, he would like randomly stare at her. She would catch him staring at her. It looks so random, like in the movies. Like he would just stop in like the middle of a parking lot and suddenly, like it's so awkward.
The movies are a vibe for sure, and I think they're still fun to watch. But like from a roasting perspective,
it's except for Breaking Dawn, of course. Breaking Dawn Part 1. That's the pregnancy one, right? Yeah, that one. Except for that one.
Hard pass.
And like even Eclipse, I don't know, but like Twilight, New Moon, and Breaking Dawn Part 2 are kind of fun.
Yeah.
Breaking Dawn Part 2 was fun because we got so much more, like we got the additional
can
vampires.
I say that I'm so disappointed because again, Stephenie Meyer does do good world building. I think there's also a world where we could have gotten a much cooler conclusion to the series where there was a fight, and they do that in the movies. At least they show you the fight. But there's like I don't know. I feel like we could have had several books of like a typical fantasy adventure book where they're gathering forces and like having battles, and it's about taking down the Volturi. Like I don't know. That could also just be me having read much more fantasy in the interim. So. Anyway, I think that's everything. That's all the points I had on my list. Do you have anything else you want to address about Twilight?
I think we hit a lot of like the bigger points. I obviously have much more to say, but I think we hit all the big points. I think we're good.
Yeah. I think I will always thank Twilight for kicking off my love of like paranormal and paranormal romance. I think that Twilight spawned a lot of books in that sort of genre, and some of them remain my favorite books like to today. Some of them are pretty shit, I'm not gonna lie, but it really did a lot for the genre. And so you got to give credit where credit is due. I will never be reading these books ever again. You cannot make me. Thank you very much.
That's it for me. We can close that reading chapter out. Maybe I'll do like a roast watch of the movies, but like the books it's done. It's done.
We're done. It's finished. We're moving on. So as we move on, let's maybe talk about our low expectations, whether that's low expectations for ourselves or for the trash media that we're potentially about to consume. Kiko, what are you going to be watching or reading in the next couple of weeks? Is it When the Moon Hatched?
Yeah, low expectations for that one. I think by the next episodes that we record, I wouldn't be done with When the Moon Hatched.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
No, it's a chonky book.
So I think like...
That's some ACOTAR level reading.
Yeah, definitely it'll take a longer time, or like I'll have to set aside just a free day. I think I already said this last episode, didn't I? But Vox Machina, the new season of Vox Machina. Did I already say that?
Okay. I think we mentioned it, yes.
Okay, then honestly, I don't have new low expectations. Oh, there's the baking murder series. Yes, that's my low expectation.
Oh, yeah,
that's what it will be. Let me actually, what is it called again?
Murder, She Baked.
Yeah, Murder, She Baked by Joanne Fluke. I'm going to be reading that series, or like as much as I can, because I'll be reading up until the key lime pie one for sure. Why? Because I love key lime pies. But it looks so fun. It looks fun and goofy. Like baking and murders, it's everything I've wanted and more. And I will be watching the movies or like series that is out about it. But I'm excited for that. It's very like Christmassy. It feels a little Christmassy too.
Yeah, I'm actually adding it to my holiday rotation so I can get cozy and read books over the winter break. So I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah.
For my low expectation, it's not low expectation. It's a high expectation. We watched the first 6 episodes of Vox Machina. I'm waiting on the next couple of episodes to come out. Oh my God, dude. I don't know how they do it. It gets better every season. And, you know, you think I've watched the whole campaign. I know what's coming, but I don't. They make a bunch of changes and all of them are good. I'm so hyped. So high expectations for the rest of the season. In addition to that, Lincoln Lawyer actually has season 3 releasing. And I'm really looking forward to that because the first 2 seasons are phenomenal.
It's been on my list for a while.
Yeah, we were rewatching season 1, except Anna was telling me all about the legal inconsistencies throughout the series.
I'm sorry.
Like, we'll pause it every couple minutes and she'd be like, so when they're talking about this, actually it means... So yeah, those are our low expectations. I think we're ready to wrap things up. Okay, you can follow us at
on Less Than a Pod on Instagram, and you can follow us on Storygraph or Goodreads, and our YouTube channel is up.
Hey.
It's at Less Than a Day Pod. You can.
I want to shout out my girls' excellent graphic design skills for our YouTube channel.
That is so false. Oh my God! But no, but you're so right. Kay designed the studio like picture or like image by her on her own. It's incredible, the studio thing. It's so good. Truly, so much talent. There's so much talent. Like an overflowing amount of talent. But yeah.
Okay. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah, Spotify.
Oh yeah, Spotify and Apple Podcasts now.
Yep. So check us out. Thanks everyone for listening.
Bye.